In this lesson, we're going to go ahead and now get wrapped up with the texture painting of this game character. Alright, so what I'm going to do now that we have this rust color that's painted on this chess piece, what I can do now is come in, we'll make a new layer just above this eyes layer, and let's use that as the main color for this chess piece. So what I can do is just go ahead and drag a marquee, expand this all the way out, and then Alt backspace to fill this with my foreground color. In this case, a nice kind of blue. Alright, so if I go ahead and save this out, take a look at this as the actual color map, jump back over into XSI, and there we are. So now we have this nice little blue color that's baked in here. So you can kind of see the effect that we're starting to kind of go for. What we really want to do is bake or give the illusion of having these really nice soft shadows that are baked right into the textures themselves. So the nice indirect lighting effect you get without having to have any lights whatsoever. But now what we can do whenever we go into the game engine is we can let the game engine take care of more of the direct lighting. So we get the best of both worlds right here using a combination of textures and actual lights. So what I'm going to do is now add a little bit of rust and a few chip marks here around this armor. So what I'm going to do is go back into Photoshop. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and open up my 3D Total directory, and let's open up this Metal 19. Alright, this will be a really nice rust color to be able to use on here. So once again, just like before, I'll go ahead and scale this down so that it fits entirely over this area of the chest that we want. Alright, so something kind of like that. I'm going to go ahead and leave the color pretty much as it is. So just like before, with this new rust layer selected, we'll call this Rust 2. I'll go ahead and give it a new layer mask. Let's fill this with black, just like what we did. And now what we can do is come in and use Photoshop to now, once again, just reveal these areas back in. But you can see right now as I reveal this, it's really just a harsh line that we're drawing. What I really want to do is make more of a speckled kind of look, like it's really kind of been chipped away with age. So what I can do is over here in the brushes palette, if I open this up, what I might actually need to do is open it up in its own window. Alright, I'll just do that by just clicking on this brushes tab and just pull it right out. Okay, so let's find a nice small brush, so something maybe in the neighborhood of 3. Right, that looks like that might work. Let's go to our brush tip shape. Let's find a nice small brush. It's got some of this noise on it. Alright, I'll drop my diameter down to, let's say about 3. Alright, let's now increase the spacing on this. If you look closely, you can see the spacing that's happening. Actually, I'll go ahead and use a slightly larger brush just so you can see the actual effect that we're starting to go for. So I can increase this spacing. I can start to go to my shape dynamics, increase my size jitter so that way everyone's just a little bit different size. Increase my angle jitter so everyone is a slightly different angle. Go to things like my scattering and increase my scatter effect so that way these kind of scatter about. Once again, I'll lower these down to, let's say, about 3. There we go. So you can see now as I paint, it makes these nice scattered types of effects. So what I can actually do is let me lower my scatter down, so that way it doesn't pull these out quite so much. There we go. So now what I can do is very quickly come in and just paint this texture. And again, what I'm doing is, just like before, I'm painting with white to reveal these areas in this layer mask. So I'll come in, I'll reveal some of these areas. And again, like I said, just kind of give it a little bit more of that worn, kind of aged look. So I can come in and paint some of these down in this area. Maybe just scatter a few of these around kind of a few of these little rust spots. So we'll come into the back side of this, bring some of these rusted areas right up along this back side of the collar. There we are. Come down with some of these, bring some of this up and around along the back side, and make sure I try to get some of that around this bottom side of the collar also, just right along in here. There we are. Much better. So you can see now we're really quickly starting to get kind of a nice aged look. So we can always come back now, back to these things like the dynamics, maybe increase my brush size just a little bit. Let's now give this a higher amount of spacing. So we can come in and paint just a few of these kind of random little rust spots. Let's actually zoom back in on that. There we go. Just really quickly, just a few scattered little rust areas. Maybe bring a couple down in this area. Okay, now let's see what we got. Go ahead and save this out as a JPEG color map. And let's see what we have. Now this updates. So now we have a little bit more of a rusted, aged kind of look to this, and it really kind of gives it a nice little bit of depth and just something other than the nice, shiny armor that you might expect to see. Just bringing a little bit more character into this. Alright, so back in Photoshop, what I'm going to do now is take the last of our 3D total textures that have been provided on this CD for you, and I'm going to use this Neanderthal. And what I'll do is I'll use this as the texture for this character's hair. So I can take this, Control T to free transform. We'll scale this down into the shape of the hair. All right, and I'll fit that right over this hair UV quadrant. Scale this in just a little bit more. There we are. And there we go. Now we should have a little bit of hair on this character if I save this out. Alright, save that. Go back to XSI, give this a second to update. And there we go. Now we actually have a little bit of a hair color on this guy. Okay, now what I need to do is paint a little bit of an eyebrow over this. So what I'm going to do is use my rubber stamp or clone tool. Let's come in. I'll select my rubber stamp tool. Alt to sample a point anywhere on this hair. So I'll just Alt click. And now what I can do is paint that sampled area right over here along the eyebrow. Give this a little bit more hardness so that it comes out. There we are. Okay, and if I need to, now I can always come back and with my eraser, maybe just come back and erase a few of these just to sort of taper this off or make this look a little bit cleaner. So we'll come back in with that. Maybe use this rubber stamp tool in a couple more areas right in here. Usually I find it to be a little bit easier to sometimes overpaint an area and then just take it away if you don't need it, as opposed to trying to get it just perfect every time. So let's save this out. Game Man color map. Save this out as a JPEG. Take this over into XSI, give this a second to update. And there we go. Now we actually have some eyebrows over this character's eyes. Alright, so back in Photoshop, let's go ahead and real quickly get wrapped up with most of the rest of this. So what I'll do is once again make one more layer. We'll go ahead and take this existing layer that we just did. We'll call this hair, just so we can keep this straight. So on this new layer, let's come in and just really quickly add the colors that we need. So this part will go pretty quickly. All I need to do is marquee select these, Alt backspace to fill these with the foreground color. In my case, I've selected kind of a darker blue for these areas. Do the same down here on the legs, so this is where the legs are laid out. I'll paint that. Now I might need to come back and maybe do some erasing, because you can see right in this area we have a little bit of overlap. Come back, maybe paint right over this area. There we go, that looks pretty good. So I'll go ahead and do the same thing right down in here. So we'll fill all this, and that should pretty much cover most of these areas of the hand, or most of these areas of the body. So I'll come back up, make sure I also get these areas right in here. So let's check that, make sure we didn't miss anything. Go ahead and save this out. Jump back over to XSI, give it a second to load this up. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Right, we haven't textured up the belt yet, that's perfectly normal. Okay, now we do need to come back and do this area of the hand. So that is one area that we've missed so far. So that's actually going to be a really easy area to fix. What I can do is go back to this hue and saturation layer that we had used originally to bring some color into this skin around the face. What I can do is reveal some of this same area around the hand. So what I'll do is switch to a white brush to be able to reveal these areas. Fill this, and that should paint that up with a nice white area, or a nice kind of flesh-colored bit right there for the shadows. I'll come in and just sample this same skin tone that we used earlier for this skin layer, and then just paint that color right back in to the hand. Okay. Once again, we'll go ahead and save this out so we can double check this against our actual XSI model. Jump back over to XSI, and there we go. Not too bad. Alright, now for this last little bit, all that we need to do really is sample some of this sort of lighter blue color around this chest area, and then paint this back into these areas around the legs. Right, so pretty straightforward. All we need to do is sample this same blue color. We'll go back to the legs, and just like what I showed you before, holding the Shift key to be able to paint right in these areas, so I can get a nice straight line. So I'm just holding the Shift key, moving right along this crease right here in the pants. There we go. And now I should be able to really quickly come back and fill this in. So I'll come back, fill this in with a little bit of blue, lighter colored blue anyway. Same over here on this other side. I'll just press and hold my Shift key, very carefully trace along this outer edge. So I should be able to get a nice straight edge that runs right along here. If you accidentally go over, that's alright. Just switch back to your erase tool, or you may need to just, in my case, I need to switch back to the original color that we were using and paint that right back over. Okay, we'll come back, fill in this area, get right over against that corner. There we go. Come back in and fill this little front part in with some blue. Okay, and let's take a look at what we have. So I'll go ahead and save this out as the color map. Press OK. Jump back over into XSI, and here's what we have. Now we did miss a little bit right here in this front part of the pelvis, so looks like we need to go back and actually fix that. So let's go back into this area of Photoshop. Once again, I'm going to press and hold my Shift key to get down right underneath this area. Come down, we'll get this. There we go, and I'm just going to go ahead and press my Shift key and just make sure I get that area completely filled in. Okay, so that should get us where we need to be. Save this back out. Jump back over to XSI. Give this a second to refresh. And there we are. So at this point, we're pretty much finished with about all of the actual texturing. We just have a few little spaces left. So filling in some of these areas around the feet with some blue, filling these back areas of the calves in with blue. So nothing that you couldn't follow along with at this point. It's just going to be using the exact same techniques that we've used up to this point. But you can see that by painting on top of this occlusion map that we generated from XSI, it gives us a tremendous amount of power as far as being able to now give the illusion that this model is already lit. But the fact is that this lighting is baked right into the texture. There's no lighting on this model whatsoever. So we can use this texture with the lighting baked into it to give the illusion of these nice, soft, indirect shadows and this indirect lighting. But then, like I said, you can now let your game engine take care of all of the direct lightings and the direct shadowing. So you're going to get the best of both worlds now. So we'll go ahead and stop the texturing at this point, and in the next lesson we'll start to actually add a little bit of animation to this character in preparation for taking this over into our game engine.